Yo, we talking about groceries on FBA. Yo, easy. Yeah. J to the O, the Mayos. Groceries on FBA. What you know about that? Step your game up, suck it.
Okay, I think we're operational. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Lyne. We're doing this webinar today for Shawn Mayo's group. Let me get over there. This is Shawn Mayo's group, Mastering the POD with Shawn Mayo. And let me go ahead and put this link. I'm going to put the 3 links in the chat that we'll go over probably a few times. Okay, the first link there is, or the last link there is Shawn's Facebook group, which is here. And then the first link is the Facebook group that I set up for anybody who's in these webinars that has questions or anything regarding regarding what we go over. And so please feel free to join and post your questions, brag about your work, and all those wonderful things. It's really important. Sorry, I'm having some difficulty getting started today, so I apologize. It's really important that you guys start and create projects in Photoshop, right? Because that's really you can watch tutorials forever and ever, and you won't actually really figure things out until you start working on stuff yourself. So be sure that you begin to work on projects, and that's going to be the best way for you to learn. I talk a lot about putting yourself in a problem-solving mindset. You know, basically, if you're working on a project in Photoshop and you run up against a wall, you go out to Google just like I do, and you search for the answer, right? And it might take you a few minutes to find the answer, but once you discover how to get past the thing that's holding you up, it won't hold you up anymore. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to remember every little piece of Photoshop just by looking up a single answer, but trust me, it is the way to do things. So we're happy to be here, and obviously honored that you guys have joined us for this training, and we are going to get started. So hopefully we'll be able to get you started and get you comfortable with how to navigate in and use Photoshop, and then we'll be covering more advanced techniques and more advanced ways to do things in future tutorials. Also, when you join Photoshop and Illustrator Sorcery, we post at least one small tutorial up there each week on how to do something specific, or we will try to record a video in answer to a question that somebody may have inside of the webinar, the training that we're putting on. So, all right, so to open up a file here, we just click on New, and I've got a template created for merch or print on demand. The most common template is going to be 15 by 18, and just for your purposes, go ahead and set the PPI or the pixels per inch to 300. That's over here. So if you're going to create a new document, you can just come over here and you can put in whatever the pieces are that you want to put in. You know, the dimensions here, if you want to work in inches, which is most common, obviously, or pixels, centimeters, millimeters, points, and picas. So I prefer to work in inches, so I just do 15 by 18. I keep the resolution at 300 pixels per inch in Photoshop. And then for this particular template, I'm using CMYK color, that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and the key color, which in this case is black. And then we've got 16-bit. So, in a transparent background. I always start with a transparent background in Photoshop because I don't know how the design is going to come together necessarily, and I just prefer to start with transparent background. All right, so we create that. And so I created that, so now it's a brand new document. But because I was already working on one, or I already created a template, all I have to do is come over here and click on the template, and then, or double click on it, and it'll open up in the workspace here in Photoshop. So today what we're going to cover, is everybody hearing me okay? And yeah, there wasn't, Sarah, I'm not sure. The thing that was showing in the new document screen was the document creation dialog. So if you didn't see that, then go ahead and message me in the Photoshop Sorcery group, and we'll figure out what's going on with your interface. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we are going to set up a workspace that we're going to have a lot of things, that we're all going to have in common. So when I'm bouncing around between the tools, you guys are going to be able to follow along, and this way you'll have all the same tools in the same places that I have them. And because right now, probably what you're looking at, if you've got Photoshop open, is you're probably looking at something that looks like this. Okay, and this can be obviously not my custom stuff over here in libraries, but you might be looking at something that looks like this, or you might be looking at something that looks like pretty close to this. Although I guarantee you that your thumbnails are not this large, right? Your thumbnails are probably this size or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how to create a custom workspace starting from here, and then hopefully you guys will be able to follow along. One thing I do want to give credit where credit is due. This workspace was inspired by a guy named Deke McClellan. He does tutorials on all kinds of amazing things in Illustrator and Photoshop. He's definitely inspired me to learn more and more and more with the software. And the way that you can view his tutorials is by getting a paid membership on LinkedIn. We don't have affiliate with them or anything like that. But even if you get, I think, the lowest paid membership with LinkedIn, you can go to their learning. There's a little tab at the top. Let me show you that really quick. There's a little tab at the top that's learning up here on the right, and you can access hundreds and hundreds of different tutorials through LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. All right, so what we're gonna move on here and start creating this workspace. And like I said, this workspace is one that I created following Deke McClellan's tutorials, but it has worked really, really well for me. And so I think it's good, just to use it as a starting point for you guys. And then as you guys get more efficient in Photoshop, you'll probably move things around and create your own workspace. But after the tutorial tonight, you should understand how to do that. So essentially what I did is I came up here into this box and I clicked on Essentials, and that gives us a starting point, which should be very similar to each other. Is everybody following along? Just give me a yes in the panel if you are. Wonderful. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, or the first thing I want to share with you, is if you ever get lost or if a panel disappears on you, it's really important to know how to get that panel back, because this can happen. You might be working on something real intensely. You might, hit your tab key and then everything disappears. That could be pretty scary if you're working on a project and you meant to hit Control or Shift or Alt, or you went to hit the Q and you hit Tab instead, and everything disappeared and you don't know how to fix it. All you have to do is hit Tab again and everything comes back. It's really pretty simple. But if you don't know that that's what you do, it can really mess you up for quite a while. So again, if you hit Tab, what that does is that gets rid of all your toolbars and everything, and even the contextual property bar up at the top, and allows you to see a much larger, a lot more real estate in the image that you're working on. Okay. So that can be handy sometimes. At other times, if you're looking for tools and stuff, it can really mess you up. Okay, so let's say, the other thing to note, if we look at the history bar here, right? The history bar is going to be something you're going to use all the time. Okay, so on any tab, any panel that you can work with. So we take layers, we can move layers over here, and we can create a floating panel or floating a panel in the workspace, right? Because maybe you don't like layers over here. You can pull it off into the workspace and you can move it over here if you want it, right? But what happens if on accident you close it? Well, that would kind of stink if you didn't know how to get it back, right? Well, the way you get it back is you can access every single window that's available in Photoshop. If you come under Window here and scroll down, and you'll see that every single panel is available here. So let's grab our layers back. And if we want to dock our layers somewhere, we just grab it by the tab here. And you'll see, do you see that blue box that's around where the channels and the paths are? That means that tab is going to dock in there. If I put it here where that blue bar is separating the one toolbar from the larger panels, if I put it in there, it's going to create a new bar in there with layers in it. Okay, so I want to drag it down and I want it to be in here. Okay, so I just drop it in there, and then as long as I move the tab horizontally, I can rearrange the tabs in the workspace. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense and being helpful. So what we're going to do is we want to take our libraries, which I have over here. This is the default place where libraries is located under the Essentials workspace. Okay. And also one thing I'm going to do. So here's another tip. Like, let's say you start customizing all your tabs and everything, and let's say you decide to put paths, inside of this. So now it becomes an icon, and then when you want to access it, you just click on the button, and then the paths option panel opens up, right? To hide it, you click on this double arrow, and it'll hide itself back here into this panel or into this bar. Okay. So let's say you've made a bunch of changes to workspace, but now you're kind of lost and you're not really liking what you're seeing. Okay. What you can do up here is you can say reset essentials. So reset the one that you're on. Okay. And it'll restore everything back to where it was before you started making changes. That could come in handy sometimes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, though, now I'm going to try not to get off on too many tangents to just create this common workspace, is we're going to take libraries and we're going to move it into the layers panel next to paths. So we're going to drop it down here. We want to make sure that the blue box is around where the paths is located, because if we dropped it in here, where this blue bar is between the properties adjustments panel and the layers channels paths panel, is it would create another box in there. So we don't want that. Okay, so we're just going to drop libraries in there, and what that does is that gives us a little bit more real estate for our work area, which is nice. Okay, and so layers, channels, paths, and libraries, they fit well together there. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to move the adjustments and properties into this right bar menu on top of. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag properties, we're going to put it here, and we're going to drag adjustments, and we're going to put adjustments above. Oops. I accidentally clicked my right mouse. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to put adjustments on top of the properties cube. Okay, now if you can see, let me do that again so you guys can kind of see what happened there. Notice after the slight change I made, these now are in the same cube here. Okay, and I can move these two together by grabbing this this top scrubber bar here. Okay, you can have each item separately in its own category, its own scrubber bar, or if you want to put this inside to be part of to be grouped together, you just drag it over and you wait for the blue to highlight, to highlight here, and then you can drag it up, above or below. Okay, so we're going to have properties. Sorry, we're going to have the adjustments above the properties cube inside the same group. Okay, then we are going to open the styles window. Okay, and we're going to drag it into the color window next to the swatches. Okay, so now we've got color, swatches, and styles all up here in this top properties box. Okay. All right. Then what happens when you do that is you can see that the colors tab readjusts itself to a much larger. It takes up a lot more real estate. So we don't want that. So we're going to resize that, and we can do that by just hovering over the bottom of that properties box, of the color properties box, until we get this double arrow, and then you can move your, click and move your mouse, and that'll resize this. And this size is fine. Is everybody following along? Okay, now what we want to do is we want to go to the, let's see here. We want to open up the actions panel, and we want to add that to the history cube. So I don't want it hidden in here. I want to go ahead and I want to have it underneath the history button. Okay. Okay, so then the next thing we want to do is grab the histogram panel. We'll ungroup it from the navigator cube, and we'll put it in its own group. Sorry about this, guys. I'm reading some notes here. Okay, so we'll hide that one. And we're going to add actions into the history panel. So we've got actions and navigator in the same group. Okay. Okay, so we got histogram. We've got the histogram panel into the device preview, its own section. Okay, now we want the info panel. So we grab info, hide that, and we're going to group info with histogram. Okay, now we're going to grab the brush panel. Let me hide that. And then the clone source panel. Okay, we're going to go ahead and group those. Okay, so I have I have brush and brush presets on the top, and then I've got the clone source below that. Okay, and then the character panel. This comes in really handy to have in this toolbar. You use the character in the paragraph panel all the time, especially in the designs you're probably going to be doing for merch. You're going to be using the character panel all the time, so it's going to live over here. Okay, we want glyphs. Okay, so we're going to do glyphs, and what we're doing here is we're going to, because glyphs has so many things in it, depending on the font that you choose, we want to go ahead and we want to float glyphs in this situation, right? And we're going to resize it to something like this, so then we'll have a larger view whenever we want to access the glyphs panel. Now what's really cool is, watch this. We're going to close the glyphs panel, and then if we come back up here and we want to access glyphs again, when we access it, it's the same size that it was before we closed it. So So now, basically what we're doing is we're trying to set up all these, this custom workspace and all these preferences, and we're going to save them in a little bit. And then forevermore, your glyphs panel will be big and easy to access. So let me close that. Okay. Now we want to do layer comps. Okay. And then tool presets. We're going to put the tool presets under the layer comps group. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the navigator group. We're going to drag that down to the bottom here. And this is it. So now we have our history panel at the top. We've got our device preview. We've got our brush presets, or our brushes, our brush presets, our clone tool, or clone source. Got our character, our paragraph, layer comps, notes, tool presets, adjustments, properties, histogram, info, actions, and navigator, all over here on the right tool space. Okay, so now that we've made all these changes, and then the other thing that we want to do too here is you want to go ahead and click into your layers here. Make sure you right click on the preview or the thumbnail, and then you'll want to go ahead and select large thumbnails. This is just going to make things a lot easier for you when you're navigating through and you're trying to figure out what layer you want to work with. Go ahead and set it to large thumbnail. I mean, if you are working on bazillions of layers, you can choose a smaller one, but I always prefer to work with a large thumbnail in the layers panel. Okay. All right. So now, in order to save this this workspace, what you do is you can come over here. So you click in your workspace drop down, and you come over here and you select this new workspace selection. Okay, and that'll open up the new workspace dialog here in the middle. Sarah, can you see this dialog in the middle of my workspace? Okay, good. All right, so it says new workspace here, and you can just name it whatever you want. So we could go Photoshop, or this is a file extension for Photoshop. Sorcery workspace. Okay. And then you just click save, and there you go. So now I'm curious how close I got here. Oh, I screwed up a few things. That's okay. I'll make a follow-up tutorial and make it so everything's rearranged like this here. My notes weren't that great, but okay. So actually, let's go ahead and do this now, because then I can show you something. Okay. So the difference between the two workspaces, right? In this right bar, work bar. Okay, this is what I was shooting for. So here I've got the history and I've got the actions in the same group. So I'm going to switch back to the PSD Sorcery, and I'm going to grab actions, and I'm going to put those in with history. So there, that looks exactly like it looks in this one-on-one. Okay, and then I've got histogram and information in their own group right underneath there. So I'm going to grab histogram and information, and we're going to move them right below there. Now, here's something that's really important. This can happen, right? If you grab this scrubber bar and, you're trying to place it in between these two groups, make sure that the blue bar highlights between the two groups. Don't make the mistake of dropping it inside the group, inside one or the other, okay? All right, so also notice something that's happening. I made these changes to this work group. I haven't saved it yet, but I'm actually clicking back and forth between two different work groups, right? So you would think if I hadn't saved it yet, it would revert back to what I had actually set up in the workspace. But in fact, it won't actually do that until unless I click reset whatever the workspace is that I'm working in. So that's important to notice. And the reason it's going to do that is it's going to give you a chance basically to save whatever changes you've made to the workspace. Okay, so now the next group is we have the adjustments and the properties group. So let's go back here over to PSD Sorcery. We'll grab the scrubber bar, put it right there. Okay, then we've got our brushes and clone group. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to not to get lost here. Okay, then we've got our character and paragraph. Okay. We got our tool presets. Or whoops. What did I do? What did I do, guys? Okay. One-on-one. So then we've got our navigator and our device preview in this bottom panel here. So we'll group these two together. And I believe, yay, we did it, guys. Okay, so now we want to save this, all these changes that we made, so that when we open things back up, we it opens up the settings just the way that we have here. So what you do is you take a note of what you've named your workspace up here. So any change that you make, the way to save it is you just come back here and you do new workspace again, and you name it with the exact same name, and it'll bring up this dialog and it'll say, this workspace already exists, you wish to replace it, and you say yes, and now that workspace has been saved. So now if we do reset PSD Sorcery, right? So like let's say we had grabbed the actions out of where it was over here, opened it up, told it we wanted it to live over here, but then we got tired of that. If we do reset PSD, it's going to bring it back to where we last saved the workspace. All right, guys, was that helpful? I hope that was helpful. Okay. One other thing that I think might be helpful is eventually, if we go ahead and we open up timeline, and then sorry. See, I don't even do everything right the first time. Okay, yeah. So the way that you collapse the tab is by double-clicking on the tab. The way to open it is by single-clicking. Okay, so now we can just go ahead and come back here, and we go new workspace, new PSD Sorcery, save, yes, and there we go. All right, so I've shown you guys how to set the large thumbnails. All right, and this. So I'm trying to get my bearings here. Okay, so anytime you see a box with 3 lines, or what is that, 4 lines, I guess. My eyes aren't what they used to be. That's called a flyout menu. And so you can click on that and you can select any of these options here. We do have panel options So this is the panel options for the layers panel. If you were in your channels, and you came down here to panel options, well, bear with me here. Let me see if I can find one of these that actually, okay, so you can kind of see the only panel options for paths are these thumbnail size options, okay? For libraries, let's see, no panel options. Okay, so that's cool, all right. So layer, panel options. Okay, this is really important. If you're ever using somebody else's template and you you open it up and it looks like this and there's no thumbnail, the way that you can fix that, right, is exactly what I just showed you. You go to the flyout, click on panel options, and then you can come here and you can set it up to use whatever thumbnail size you'd like for it to use. So that's one way to get unstuck if something doesn't look familiar. And okay, now on these options down here, some people choose to turn them off because they feel that that this clutters up. So for example, this add copy to copied layers and groups. Some people choose to turn this off because they feel like it clutters up the panel tab, but I don't feel that way, and so I leave all these on. Okay, so there you go. All right, channels. So let's go back over here to channels. Here you want to go to your panel options here and make sure that you've got your large thumbnail selected. If you ever don't see thumbnails in channels, you'll know how to fix that. Paths, the same thing, what we just did. Panel options, make sure you've got your large thumbnail turned on. And then I want to open the adjustments panel. Grab here, the flyout, and you want to uncheck this, the add mask by default. So go ahead and just uncheck that. And then I always click whenever I make a change like that to a default preference or setting in a flyout menu. I always reopen the flyout just to make sure that that it took and did what I wanted it to do. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and hide that. We're going to draw a rectangle here. Okay, this opens up the rectangle properties panel. And this would be annoying if this opened every single time you created a shape. So we want to open up the flyout and uncheck the show on shape creation. And I open it again, make sure it took, and then close that guy there. Okay, now in order to save the changes that we just made, okay, and all I'm doing here is I'm clicking on the move tool, and then we're going to press my delete key, and that's going to delete this rectangle. Hopefully, don't make a liar out of me. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. Sorry guys, you always have to have one layer. Okay. All right, so the way that we need to the way to save all the preferences that we just set up, like that rectangle show on creation thing, is you come up here to File, and then you choose Exit. Okay, so make sure if you've been following along and setting up your desktop or your workspace along with me, that right now you go to File and Exit, and you click on Exit. Okay, and then you go ahead and reopen Photoshop. You don't have to save this document, but as long as you, what you have to do is you have to exit Photoshop, okay? and then you'll be squared away, and all those preferences that you just set up will be saved. All right, now something that I like to do, guys, when I'm creating merch designs is I like to have rulers on the document that I'm using, but not everybody does. Okay, so the way that you can get rid of rulers, or the way that you can show rulers, is coming up here to the View menu and then clicking on rulers, and you notice that they disappear. Okay, so again, it's View and then rulers. Of course, you can do Control R is the shortcut key to turn them on and off, but I don't find that I toggle them on and off very often. So, you know, I just like to work with them on in this way, and whatever you like to do is great. The other thing that you'll notice right now is that the zero is in the top left corner, right? But if you grab from this corner down into the document, you can reposition the 0 point. Okay, now this comes in handy if you're trying to work on aligning things in a specific way, or you know, I'm sure you can find, you know, where this would come in handy. Okay, the other thing that you'll notice is as I'm moving this is what's called a guideline, and so or a guide, I guess. So you can see in here, you've got all these guide controls, and you've got this this option here to snap. And then in here, you have options on what you want to snap to, okay? And so it comes in really it's very helpful to have your snap set up initially, but it can also be annoying. Like if you're really zoomed in and you're trying to work on some fine detail, sometimes you don't want to have the snap turned on. And so the way that you can deal with that is you just come under View and you click it, and it'll turn it off. Okay. And then what you'll notice here is when I drag a guide down, even though it looks like it's snapping, it's not really. Like if we were really zoomed in here, let me go ahead and, so then I'm trying to like restore my 0 guides here to the corner of the document. You'll notice it's not really snapping. Okay. Again, let me turn it back on, show you the difference. So now if I want to see how it's snapping to the guides there, it becomes a little bit easier to get it right on the, like on the 1 inch mark, for example. Something else that that I'm going to go over in Illustrator next week is I want to show you guys that if you're looking to do an exact measurement on something, and by the way I'm zooming, just as a quick reminder, is I'm holding Alt and I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in and out, okay? So let me go ahead and go up here to View, and we're going to clear the guides. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to do Control 0 to fit the document on the screen. Then I'm going to do 1 scroll back, okay? And let's say I wanted to put a guide here at 6 inches, okay? So I come over here and, so I grab this ruler and we're at 6 inches, okay? And then I want to put this one at 4 inches, okay? What's going on? Why are you not doing that? Okay, good. All right, so there we go. We've got our guides at 6 inches and 4 inches. Now watch when I zoom in. It's not on the 4 inch mark, right? Let's go over here to 6. Oh, we lucked out. I think we got it. Yeah, okay, so we didn't get it exactly on the 6 inch mark, okay? Now something we can do is we can, now that we're zoomed all the way in, we can make like little micro adjustments. Sometimes if it's giving you trouble and it's not letting you click right on the 6, it might be better if you just pulled it further off. Okay, and now that's about as close to the 6 as my eyes can see that we're going to get. It might be a little bit off, but the point is that even though when you're zoomed out from an image, you think you might be right on, you could be really off. Like for example here, we're very far off the 4. There we go. We're still off the 4, but you know, that's good enough. You guys get the point of what I'm trying to share. All right. Okay. And if you don't want to work with your guides anymore, you can just come here and you can clear the guides. Now, let's say we've got a couple of guides down here. All right, and we're using them to align some things like, you know, we're creating a square. Okay. And I want to give that a black stroke, and I don't want any fill. We're going to give it a pixel depth of like 6. Okay. And we'll call it good there. All right, so we can come in here. So you can see here, right, like the guides are sort of in the way, right? So this might be a situation where you might want to clear them out. But here's something else to notice. If we go ahead and we select, sorry, let's see here. Okay, so notice that on the move tool here, when I hover over the guide, I've got the double arrow and the guide is movable. But let's say we don't want the guide to be movable. We can come up here and we can select to lock the guides. Okay. Now you notice when I move my mouse over the guide, I can't do anything with it. I can't move it. Okay. And then if you get tired of your guides and you don't want them to be there anymore, you can clear them like that. Okay. It's also good to note that you can clear one guide at a time. You just can't have them locked. Okay. So here we go. If we've got these guides out here like this. Okay, now they're locked now, so that means that I can't select them. Okay, I can't, no matter what I do, I can't get at them, right? So come over here, unlock the guide, grab it. Oh, this can be handy too. So if you right click on it, you can set the color of your, oh sorry, you can set the color of your background. Change the color there. Okay. Anyway, there's a couple more things I want to go over with guides, but we can do it in a shorter tutorial in the group. All right. Okay, up here in the rulers, you can change, if you right click on the ruler, you can change to the unit you'd like to work in. So if you want to be working in points, you can right click and select points, and notice that it changes both rulers. Most of the time I choose to work in inches though, and so that's how I leave it. Okay. So I'll click. All right, so I'm going to turn this rectangle off so we can't see it. We got the text layer. How are we doing on time? Okay, so I'm just going to go over some basic text stuff with you guys. This is your text tool over here. The flyout gives you, it usually defaults to a horizontal type tool. You've got a vertical type tool. Then you've got vertical and horizontal type masking tools, okay? 9 times out of 10, you guys are going to be working with one of these two tools up here, okay? So what I do to create a text box, just to start, is I'll just drag the text box onto the image. Okay. Now you'll notice we get these pink. Let me see. Okay, so that pink guideline right there is showing that this text box is now hit the center line of the document. Okay, and then if we grab it here or move it out to here, it'll appear when we're centered on the document with the type tool. We don't have to be that worried about it, but you know, there you go. Okay, now sometimes what'll happen is, especially if you got a new install of Photoshop, it'll default your text to 6 point. Okay, and you'll type something in there, like you'll be typing and you won't see anything, right? Well, the reason is because your type is so small you can't see it. So we'll go ahead and pop that up to 72 points, and now we can see the text. Okay. Also, the other thing that might bug you or might drive you absolutely crazy is, you know, you try to, sorry, hang on. Okay, so I'm trying to undo my placement of this text box, and I can't do that. And the reason is you have these elements up here, and once you create something, you have to tell Photoshop if you're okay with it, you click the checkbox. If you're not okay with it, you click the cancel, which is here. So let me click the cancel there. Inside of the text box, you can click inside the same text layer if you use your text tool. And you click right next to the text that's on there. However, if you click, if you're not kind of right on that text, you're going to create a new text layer. Okay, so that's important to remember. Inside of this text box, I think you noticed earlier when I created the text box to start with, it was about this size. All right. And so as long as I'm in the text box, I can resize the text box without impacting the actual text. Okay, so even though the text is moving to the left because I'm resizing the width of this, the text itself is not adjusting, okay? So I can, you know, grab these handles and I can move them around. The alignment of the text inside the box is handled up here. So we've got left alignment, center alignment, and right alignment. But once I click OK, if I were to select my move tool and then adjust the box from there, you'll notice that the text itself adjusts. So if I adjust the width of the box now, it makes the text thinner inside the box because it's treating it as an image. So even though there's so much more space down here than what the text is taking up, if I readjust the size here, it's going to shrink that text really tiny, okay? To cancel that, I just have to click the cancel button up at the top, all right? Now let's say you had clicked OK. So let me grab this. We'll shrink it down. And for some reason you had clicked OK. The way to get back out of that is to open up your history panel and back through your history. I like to have my history panel because I'll tend to go through a bunch of different changes and then I need to back up quite a few steps. But so I like to drag it down and have it be open a little bit more. So if I want this to save like this, remember you have to go up to File and Exit, and it'll save the size of this panel that you've just set in resizing it. All right, so we've got about 7 minutes left. I want to open up to questions. Does anybody have any questions about what we covered tonight? Okay, while you guys are thinking, did you guys find this helpful at all, the stuff that we covered tonight? Hopefully you learned how to create a custom workspace, how to restore a workspace, how to recover work panels that have disappeared and vanished. Okay, Jacob asks, does going back through the history, sorry, okay, I'm getting a few things here. Is going back through the history destructive or non-destructive? It's what I would call non-destructive if you're using the history panel, because watch, if I go all the way up here to view guide, all of the redos are still in place. So you can come back here as long as you don't make a change from here inside the document, you can recover all the changes that you made in the history panel. However, if I back all the way up to here, right, and then I go and I create another item, then you lose all of the, so then it destructs. Is that what you're asking, Jacob? Then basically you are not able to recover the changes you made past that point. Is that helpful, Jacob? I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. So yeah, if you need more detail on that, go ahead and message me in the group. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post these. I just opened it on accident. Okay, let me get back to Photoshop and we'll come up here. We'll grab a new, we'll set up a new text layer. We'll paste these things in. Then I'm going to resize. So we should snap to the edge of the document. Now this is, again, this is something that you could do. This could be a project that you work on tonight. Just do something this simple, right? Open up Photoshop and paste some text in and go, you know what, that doesn't look great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how to make it look better, you know? And so we come over here and we change the font size. And so these two links now look good, but this one doesn't, right? Because this one's mucked up. So now what I might do is I might go ahead and cut that out of there. Click OK to accept the changes I've made to this text box here. Go ahead and set up another text box. Resize it. Oops. Paste that link in. Change the font size. Okay, that's better. It's hard to read. So I might go ahead and bold it up. So now we need to back it down a little bit. Here's something you can do too. If you click in any of these dialog boxes, right, you can use your up and down arrows to experiment or to do fine adjustments, okay? The other thing that you can do in here for font is, I believe you can, yeah, you can put decimals in. So you can do like okay, so a 0.2 works, right? But a 0.3 does, 0.4 is okay, 0.5 goes to the next line, right? So if we wanted to get the absolute maximum font size for this font bolded with this, this text in here, we would do it like that. And because we're still in the box, we can resize the box without monkeying with the size of the text, okay? We click OK to accept that. And we decide to move it down here like this. Okay, so Jacob, we'll probably cover masks in Illustrator in a tutorial for Illustrator, in a webinar for Illustrator. Okay, what I'm going to do, Jacob, is I'm going to take notes of all the questions you're asking, and I'm going to go ahead and work on being able to answer those in the next webinar. Okay. All right, guys. Julia, because you have a different version of Photoshop, just you know, maybe post the version and some challenges that you're having, and in making sure that your workspace is matching up in the Photoshop group, in the Photoshop and Illustrator Sorcery group, and I can work with you on getting that squared away. All right, guys, it is 7:29. I'm going to call it a night. My family and I are heading out to celebrate some birthdays. So thank you all for being here, and have a good evening. Thanks, everybody.